Sergeant Scott Davis. And members, I know we're getting tired. I know it's been a long day. I've talked to some of the potential witnesses, not all of them. They expressed an interest that they would like to get at least this over today. And a little bit of housekeeping. If we can get through the bulk of this today, I anticipate us not coming back next week and taking a week off of our investigations to allow us to collect more documents anyway and kind of review what we've collected and kind of take stock of where we are in this committee. So I know as painful as it may be to try and get through the bulk of this today, I think it's best served for us to try and knock it out. So we're going to move forward. Sergeant Scott Davis, can you please state your name for the record, please?
Sergeant Scott Davis. Well, I work at the training academy as the in-service coordinator. And
you're still employed at the state police, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And at some point, you became in charge of reviewing use of force videos, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How did that come about?
So it came about, there was another case, and I don't know all the full details with it, but I know during depositions, the people that had signed off on the use of force report, back then, you used to sign off a direct supervisor, and then the person's captain, and the captain of the training academy. And none of those three people had reviewed the video, even though it existed. So at the time, I was told I was going to review all of them because policy didn't require supervisors to review video. So I was going to be the one to do that.
So you became the official use of force reviewer guy?
Yes, sir.
And who was you? Who, if you found something, who were you instructed to contact in the incident you thought there was a misuse of force?
I don't really know. I wasn't really given clear instructions on what to do with it. I was reporting to through my chain of command.
So you weren't given a specific supervisor to say, when you find use of force violation or what you think is egregious, contact so-and-so?
No, sir. But I mean, it seemed to function fine, to me in the beginning. Or I didn't ever have any issue with my chain of command from my perspective. If I was pushing something up and trying to get it over to someone, it seemed like that would happen.
And so you have access to evidence.com at this point?
No, sir. I did back then, though.
Back then you had access to evidence.com?
Yes.
So you could just go and see any video you wanted and look at it and review it for force?
For a time. So after the Ronald Greene incident, I had a different chain of command. I had Lieutenant Lynn Marie and Captain Mark Richards back then. I noted some concerns with that one, wanted to talk to, detectives.
When you say that one, which one you're referring to?
The Ronald Greene case.
Okay.
And I know word came back down through my chain of command. I don't know who my captain at the time, Mark Richards, spoke to, but I know we were told that we were training and CID had it. They were investigating it, and I had no reason to doubt that. So
then you review the video as part of your kind of new job of reviewing all videos, and it was your impression that there was a misuse of force?
So I wouldn't have at the time gone on the record to say something like that because I didn't have all of the evidence. I'm just preliminarily reviewing the videos to make sure something presumably gets routed the right way. If it needs to go to CID, if it needs to go to, IA, something to that effect, or if I note any kind of training issues, things like that.
And at what point do you become concerned about this particular, or do you become concerned about this particular video?
So I was under kind of the impression that people were on admin leave from that case, and then I got another...
Were they on admin leave?
Were they on admin? No, sir. Not to my knowledge, and I don't believe anybody was. So I got another use of force report from... I can't even remember who submitted, but it was the Antonio Harris case, and it was, I want to say I got the report June of 2020, and I saw DeMoss involved in that, so I started questioning more. I already kind of had questions up to that point. We hadn't made any arrests, and I don't really know why, but now I have another person that was also involved in the Ronald Greene case, and I'm seeing some other issues. So I want a meeting. I want to meet with, the colonel, with the chief, things like that. And so I started pushing that up.
So if I understand you correctly, you watch the Greene video, you have concerns, but you think the process is working, or you believe it. You have no reason to doubt that it's working at this point. And you then get a second video involving the same officer that was in the Greene video, and now you're getting really concerned that because you thought that DeMoss shouldn't be involved in a second instance because you would think you'd be on leave. Is that kind of what your thought pattern is?
Even before then, I had concerns and was wanting to meet with the detective. I didn't know who was investigating the case. And I didn't know, I still wanted to have conversations with people about it because I had a feeling that somebody was missing something, that something had gone wrong because, like I said, nobody had been arrested.
And so you thought somebody should have been arrested at this point?
Yes, sir.
And so now you try to raise concerns. So who do you reach out to when you now want to talk and have a meeting with somebody?
I have a new chain of command now, and it was the same in 2020. Lieutenant Pat Jackson was my lieutenant, but he's also not the person on the use of force report. I would get the report and I would send it to my captain. So that would be Captain Slayton. So I reached out to him trying to get a meeting with the colonel and, the chief.
Were you successful in getting those meetings?
No, sir. Well, I got a meeting with Faye Morrison, who was the head of legal, and that was at the end of June 2020.
So you get a meeting with Faye Morrison, June 2020, but none of your supervisors at state police at this point.
No, sir.
After you meet with Faye Morrison, do you have a meeting? Do you then get a meeting with people you requested to get a meeting from?
No, sir.
At what point do you get a meeting with the people you're interested in meeting with about the video?
It was at the very end, right before Colonel Reeves left as the superintendent.
And who did you get a meeting with?
It was a briefing to a large portion of the command staff, and I can't remember exactly who all was in there. They were getting a briefing, I believe, by CID and Internal Affairs and us, or from me. It was the same day that I believe either Hollingsworth or DeMoss had met with Internal Affairs investigators, and it just, I still didn't have the case file. I hadn't seen the autopsy. I hadn't, I'm just going off of videos at this point in time, and they gave me, their audio for, I guess, what they told them in their statements to Internal Affairs, or they brought it over to me, but then they called me, I don't know, very soon after that and said, okay, you're ready to go over there and give the briefing. It's like, I can't do that. I still don't have all the facts. I don't have the case file. I don't have any of this stuff.
And did they give you the case file?
No, I mean, it had to be done then, I guess. And so we were just kind of sequestered out in the hallway waiting for some of these other sections to do their presentations, and then they called us in to do it.
Now, you're still doing use of force reviews at the no, you're not?
No, sir. So the current, routing for them as it goes to somebody's major who ultimately makes the decision on, whether or not the officer's actions violated policy.
So there's no position that you used to hold of reviewer of use of force.
And that wasn't my primary position, really. I'd done depositions before as, a use of force expert. I'd assisted CID or Criminal Investigative Division or BOI, same thing, and Internal Affairs as well. And so it wasn't necessarily a position. My full-time job was the in-service coordinator for training.
So as you're going through, does your access to videos get restricted at some point?
Yes, sir.
About when was this?
After the Antonio Harris case, that meeting in toward the tail end of June.
So this is after you meet with Miss Morrison, then you're getting your access restricted?
It was a little while. It was very soon thereafter, I believe. And essentially it was, the issue that I had with that is they said, we were told that, some people were watching videos that they weren't supposed to be watching. And I don't remember what those two videos were. I do remember it was myself and, at the time, Sergeant Huey McCartney. We looked into that, and nobody had actually watched those videos that wasn't supposed to watch them. And we tried to kind of note that a little bit, but the process kind of remained the same to where, I don't know, what I noted as an issue was, if you're telling me I have to review all these things and I have to review the videos plus the reports, but now I have to ask permission if something is restricted, that just seems silly to me. I mean, it seems.
So now your job is review videos, but before you can review videos, you have to ask permission before you can see the video. That's your job to review.
After that time in 2020, then if a video was restricted, I would request access to the video, which I was never denied access. It's just a ton of extra steps, it felt like.
And then who did you have to request to see the videos from?
You send an email through your chain of command over to that person's commander.
And who ultimately made the decision on whether you had access or not?
That person's commander would either approve it or not, which they always approved it for me, and then he would send it to, I think it was Jeff Salter at the time, who
because they're concerned
would
that
unlock it for me.
Other people are viewing videos they should not be viewing, so they're putting in this new process to make sure that videos are not being seen outside of a smaller circle. Is that fair to say?
I suppose so.
And did you get the impression they were maybe worried more about leaks than they were about anything else at this point? 'Cause that's what it sounds like to me. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, that was the impression that I got.
And that way, if you had to have access, then they would know exactly who was requesting these videos, and so then they could know who the possible leakers were.
You could keep control over who all had seen, or you'd at least know who all had seen it and had access to it.
Right. And did you ever get a letter saying you were being investigated for leaking videos or anything like that?
Gail, you mind sitting up and talk for a second?
If he received a letter that he was a potential leaker of video and under investigation.
Well, that's up. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I have no problem talking about it. Okay. Yeah, but it was unrelated. It was the whole audit team. Everyone on the team got a target letter at one point. And I was not sustained.
So they specified everybody. It wasn't like they specified you or had any reason to believe it was you. They were just taking a shotgun approach and going and look at everybody, trying to find who the potential leakers were.
I believe so, but I don't know the full scope of,
Okay, so let's go back to the video. Is it your opinion now, after everything said and done, that the use of force in the Ronald Greene matter was appropriate?
No.
Was it limited to just one officer, or do you leave multiple officers involved?
Multiple.
And that's based off of your opinion as what was at one point you recognized as the expert in state police on use of force.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had any conversation with the investigators into the Ronald Greene matter about your opinion on this?
Yes, sir. I had spoken to.
But you can't get into it. To tell them that you were.
Who asked? Oh, yeah. I think talking about Paxton, to Paxton. So, yes, I did. I spoke to Sergeant Paxton about it, and this was after my command staff briefing. Like I said, at the time back then, in 2020, I had no earthly idea who was even investigating it. I was trying to find that out and have a meeting with them, but I wasn't ever successful with that.
It says like around October of 2020, probably. If it's around when Colonel Reesley, that's correct?
It sounds about right.
And so how much longer after that did you finally talk to Paxton?
It was very soon thereafter.
Okay. Did you talk to anybody else?
Current administration? Previous? Or
yeah, I asked a bad question, so I'm glad you clarified. Let me ask you this. Did you talk to Colonel Davis about what you believe was misuse of force?
Yes, sir.
Have you met with him once or on multiple occasions about that?
About the Ronald Greene case, just with him and the Chief of Staff, Kane, and Kenny Van Buren and Captain Robert Hodges.
And what was Doug Kane's impression of your opinion of the use of force?
So I didn't really ask for anybody's impression. I was just kind of presenting it,
Did anybody disagree?
With the facts.
Did anybody disagree with you in this meeting that we're talking about?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody else within state police that's a supervisor had like a formal meeting about your opinion on the use of force?
A formal meeting? Not really.
Did you ever talk to District Attorney Belton?
Yes, sir.
And you gave him your opinion on it to District Attorney Belton?
Yes, sir. Recently, yes, sir.
And what was his response to that?
So, I don't know. We talked about it a little bit. It was kind of a strange way that he asked me. He asked me if I was aware of the colonel and the chief's opinion on the case. I said, I didn't really want to speculate on that. He asked if I would still be willing to answer honestly if it was in opposition to them, and I said, yeah. I'm not going to commit perjury. But I have no earthly idea what was said. I was not in that meeting that they had with District Attorney Belton initially. This was after that fact.
So your impression, though, with your meeting with Belton is that Colonel Davis and Kane's opinion of the use of force is in opposition to your opinion of the use of force, based off what Belton's telling you, not based off what Colonel Davis is telling you.
Based off of what District Attorney Belton was telling me, yes.
Okay. And that you had the opinion they expressed that too.
He didn't really go into that much detail with me about that.
Okay. Representative Jordan for a question.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How are you today?
Pretty good, sir. How are you?
Good. Look, I just have a few questions for you. Were there any other videos similar to Ronald Greene? I know you've mentioned this Harris and I don't know if you mentioned Bowman, but I know Paxson did. Any other videos you reviewed that was similar to the Ronald Greene incident? And what I guess when I say similar, I mean where there might have been excessive uses of force, or were you were of the opinion that officers violated policy?
Not to that extent, no. But yes, I had mentioned concerns in the past to people, which, but never anywhere near to that extent.
Not to that extent, but let me ask you this: were there multiple videos within Troop F that displayed similar type behavior?
There was one that led in that was prior to Ronald Greene, that I had gone through my chain of command to I guess not necessarily when I say not anywhere near to that extent, it truly wasn't. It was just somewhat troubling in the sense that some supervisor needs to talk to this person. So you're hoping that this person doesn't continue to do some of these same things, or the behavior doesn't get further out of the box, essentially.
All right. So was any discipline taken in any of these matters?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. Now you've kind of talked about the use of force in this Ronald Greene matter, and I've reviewed it as well. And so I don't know, is the use of force continuum, is that an outdated type model right now?
Yes, sir. It's overly simplistic for sure.
It is.
I give you an example if you want.
Look, I know verbal commands, closed fists. Look, I've been through it all. I've been through the use of force paradigm several times.
Yes, sir.
So tell me, so what is used these days?
The constitutional standard that it depends upon the totality of the circumstances, and there's an infinite number of variables that play into any single equation. For instance, the continuum. If I said somebody was punching at me, could I foreseeably maybe punch back at that person? Well, most people are going to say yes, but then if I tell you that this is a 90-year-old grandma sitting in a wheelchair on her front porch, and I know she doesn't have any weapons, and her hand speed is like this and can't possibly harm me, then no, right? It just It depends.
I don't know. I understand. So let's talk about Ronald Greene, for instance. So in this case, and I know you've already kind of stated that, but a man that has his hands up, giving up, and being tased, you would agree that's an excessive use of force, right?
I had bigger issues than that.
Well, I did too, but I'm just starting from the beginning.
So starting from the beginning was less of a concern than a lot of other portions of that case to me. I'm not saying it wasn't a concern. But I had much bigger concerns beyond that.
Well, let's get to the bigger concerns then. So go ahead and enunciate. Tell us what your bigger concerns were.
When he's in handcuffs and leg shackles, I know that they were spraying him when they were spraying him. There's a use of force report that lists OC spray. There's no other logical time it could have happened. You're not going to spray somebody with OC spray and then going ahead and put them in a chokehold or a headlock, because you're going to get that all over your face. You're face to face with the person. It makes no sense. So there's really no other logical,
Time
that it can possibly
I
happen.
understand. How about hitting somebody in the head with a flashlight?
I totally agree. That definitely excessive.
Right. Any other concerns that you had?
Yeah, they were pressing on his back at one point, and you can see Ronald Greene's foot kick up. It's the same thing. The same thing happened in the George Floyd trial. There was a pulmonologist that said, that's the moment of his death. And same thing happened with Ronald Greene.
All right. So tell me, you said your role was changed at some point. Why as far as reviewing videos, why was that role changed?
So, and that was, partly, I guess, my doing. I was pushing up through my chain of command that I did not want to. Even back with Captain Richards, we had asked questions like, what are we supposed to do with this? We don't have any kind of formal method to note anything if we have concerns. And so we're just signing off on this stuff. Are we trying to mitigate things? Like, what's the process here? And there really wasn't one. So absent some formal process or being able to document something and say I had some kind of concerns with it without going into detail, because again, I don't have all the facts at that point. It's just a preliminary review of video, that I wasn't willing to do it anymore, that I didn't want to sign off on the use of force reports anymore. So that's kind of how that came about.
More so to protect yourself then.
I don't know about protect myself. It just seems kind of fruitless and pointless, though, if you're, if there are concerns and,
All right. Tell me about this June 2020 meeting with Faye Morrison.
So I had a bunch of use of force reports printed out that I think that the feds had requested, which I won't go into details about, all of that, I guess. But I tried to review the videos with her for the Ronald Greene case, and she didn't want to. She said that wasn't really her position, which I understand to a point. But I need to meet with somebody on this. I don't know. She said something like, it's from a reasonable officer's perspective. She's not a police officer, and it's like, okay, yeah, I get that. But at the end of the day, somebody's going to get me in a deposition, or I'm going to be on the trial stand or something, and I'll call it torture and murder at some point in time. So it's,
Right. Well, so I guess the question, well, let's back up. You said you wanted to meet with somebody. You were trying to meet with command staff, and they wasn't like you necessarily asked for Faye Morrison. Somebody sent you to her, right?
I don't know how that played out. I mean, I was just communicating through my captain to get a meeting.
And that's who they sent you to?
Oh, they sent her to meet with us. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
they sent her to meet with you. Was anybody else in that meeting?
No, sir.
All right. But she didn't necessarily want to watch or talk to you about the video.
I mean, we talked a little bit, just vaguely, like I said, about some of those things, but no, I wasn't able to get her to watch the videos or really kind of go through the evidence.
All right. And look, I didn't miss your point, so I guess let me just go ahead. I caught what you said. So if you're saying today that after watching that video, you think what happened to Ronald Greene was torture and murder?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Did you ever speak to any of the Troop F supervisors about use of force incidents that caused you some concern after reviewing body cam or dash cam videos?
Yes, sir.
Who did you speak to in particular?
I called Sergeant Jason Hanneman, who's helped us out quite a bit, as a duty officer with training and stuff like that with cadets and within service, and noted my concerns to him, said, policy requires now supervisors to review these things. They're not, obviously, and, y'all are dropping the ball. People need to be reviewing this stuff.
Any progress was made from your concerns? that you're aware of?
I believe so. I mean, I know, he spoke to his captain about it at the time, and, I don't want to speculate exactly what they discussed or how. You'd have to ask him.
All right. What do you think about the Claire? Do you have an opinion about the Claire video missing initially from the files that were?
That was part of my concern when meeting with Faye was, are we positive that everyone has all of these videos? And then, like, right in that time frame, I'm locked out. So now I can't run an audit report. I can't determine who's actually seen this, who has the videos and who doesn't. I know I've got all of them. But I didn't know who had seen all of them. She said they had all the videos, so that's.
She told you they had all, but in fact they didn't have all the videos.
No, sir.
All right. Let me ask this: do you think that meeting or the story they gave you about people who people watching videos who shouldn't be watching videos? Do you think that was some type of pretextual reason given so that they could lock you out?
I don't know, and I don't want to speculate on it. I just know that, what they told us, they named them, and so we went in there, and it wasn't just me. It was Sergeant McCartney at the time too. He's a lieutenant now, but we both looked into it and looked at the audit reports, and nobody had watched them that shouldn't have watched them. I mean, they could all be accounted for.
Well, let me ask it a different way. You had pretty much free, unfettered access prior to that meeting in June of 2020.
Yes, sir.
All right. They give you a reason telling you that some people had watched the videos who should not have watched the videos, right?
Yes, sir.
You went and you investigated that. You didn't find that to be true.
Correct.
After that, you did not have access, free access to the videos without having to run it up the ladder to somebody else.
Yes, correct.
All right.
And Representative, I want to know that your 10 minutes are up. I'll let you go ahead and wrap
That's
this up.
fine. I only got two more questions. So that sounds like pretext to me, but I don't know how you would define it. But all right. All right. Well, Ronald, Paxton talked about that. No problem. Who's over internal affairs during the Ronald Greene investigation?
So I guess at various points, I guess Captain Cameron for a little while, and then Captain SQ.
Okay.
Both. It's not the current rank, but at the time.
All right. And this is the last one. Did you ever feel that any of your supervisors, chain of command, anybody try to silence you or try to
I think my chain of command agreed with me. My chain of command through the training academy.
Did anybody ever try to silence your opinions as it relates to the Ronald Greene matter?
No, I just couldn't get meetings with anybody. That was it.
Thank you, Representative Jordan. And look, I hate to cut anybody short, to be honest with you, but 10 minutes is now feeling like 2 hours at this late in the day, so I'm going to drop everybody back down to 6 minutes, and if you need more time, we'll go from there, but I'm going to try and get you wrapped up in 6 minutes. Representative Villio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What's your rank again?
Sergeant
Davis. Now, the majors are not use of force experts, are they?
No, ma'am, and I kind of mentioned that, and it seemed kind of silly to me too.
Sure. And you're a use of force expert.
Yes, ma'am.
So, according to the audit trail, you viewed the videos from Ronald Greene incident within days of the incident. Isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I understand if you don't want to answer this, but you've seemed willing to answer everything else. Restricting your access to the videos is a means of controlling the narrative, isn't it?
And I guess I'd be speculating because I'm not 100% sure if it was done out of ignorance or done out of, malintent. So
let me ask something that may surprise everyone listening. How and where can videos be erased from Axon?
Certain people, depending on their accounts, have the ability to delete videos.
So the colonel?
I assume so.
Lieutenant colonels?
I assume so. I'm not. I don't have any access to evidence.com any longer.
Right, but
So I don't know if they're. I haven't kept up with it now in quite a while, so I don't know if anything has changed after the target letter with the panel or the
sure.
team.
But back then, contrary to the belief of many or most, those videos, if you have the proper access, can be deleted, can they not?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that true of the captain of internal affairs then, too, to your knowledge?
I don't know.
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Representative Villia. Representative Bacala.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up or picking up where Representative Villia, the incident happened on the 10th. The logs reflect that you viewed almost all, I think all the videos. There's one that you didn't review at all, but you reviewed most of the videos on the 15th.
Yes.
I'm assuming that on the 15th you drew some conclusion, some opinion.
Yes.
How soon thereafter did you begin trying to get somebody to listen?
About immediately. I mean, if not immediately.
All
I
right,
mean, it was
so you're picking up the phone, or you're typing an email, or what are you doing next?
well, no, I mean, I remember going and talking to my lieutenant at the time
All right,
and
so
my
you
captain at the time.
walk down the hall to the captain and lieutenant.
Yes, sir.
All right, and that would have been probably on the 15th as well. I know you were viewing at midday around that time, so probably that afternoon you were.
I assume so.
Not, I know that's recollection. I'm and so what was the response? I mean, what? And listen, I know
I've never gotten any kind of, I've never had anybody in my direct chain, in my section, disagree with me at any point in time. I think they shared the concerns.
Okay, so now I get it. Everybody shares concern. What is the game plan that y'all say, okay, we need to?
So, and you'd have to ask my captain at the time, Mark Richards, but I know he was told, y'all are training or something to that effect, like CID is handling the case. They're investigating.
Okay, so in order to learn that CID was investigating the case, he had to have spoken to someone.
And I just don't specifically know who.
Okay. So that would be a question for, and that's Captain who?
Mark Richards, he's retired now.
All right. And characterizing the meeting with Miss Faye Morrison, who is with the Office of Legal Affairs, did you get the impression that that was mostly about civil litigation mitigation, or was this about criminal investigations and internal affairs?
I believe it was dealing with the FBI investigation.
But that was in June of 2020, so a year and a half passed between the incident and the first time you ever met with somebody outside of your immediate chain of command.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Representative Marcel.
Thank you. I'll be below 6 minutes. I want to thank you, Sergeant Davis, for your bravery to come up here and actually give an accurate account of what you know.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know that's got to be tough, sitting in a uniform and saying that you believe, and maybe it's not tough for you, but it's admirable.
Well, thank you.
You were on the use of force review team when this incident happened, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were an expert in that area, is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me who's now on the use of force team, and if they have the expertise that you have?
Well, to my knowledge, there isn't a team.
There is no more team.
No, ma'am, not to my knowledge.
Okay. So the team, they got rid of the team, or tell me what happened? They no longer need a use of force team?
Okay. The Colonel Davis, and it was unrelated. It was related to a possible leak of somebody else's name in another case that we were reviewing.
So because of that, we no longer have a use of force team. That's what I'm hearing?
Not to audit the use of force videos from.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
All right, so you believe that there was use of force in the incident of Ronald Greene. You said at least 2 officers that you believe did that. Is that accurate?
In terms of what was, for sure.
Okay. All right. And so we've had testimony earlier, I think Scott Brown, who worked with you during that time?
No, ma'am. It was Sergeant Albert Paxton.
I mean Paxton, that's what I meant. Paxton?
Yes, ma'am. So I guess it was April. I was on. It was an FIU, or Force Investigative Unit, which is a new unit. Panel discussion kind of thing over Zoom, and I think he had called me afterwards, and we were discussing the case. And
So you and Paxton worked together on the use of force, right?
No, this was just on this panel that
On
was,
the panel.
Discussing how they would implement this new Force Investigative Unit that they have now.
Okay, so we have Paxton, who has testified that they harassed him and harassed his wife, and he had to end up leaving state police. We have an officer that was fired. We have anybody looks like that came forth. Your access was denied to the videos after your meeting with Faye Morrison. And can you tell me what happened to Captain Cameron? Was he promoted to Lieutenant Colonel?
Yes, ma'am. He's currently.
So he was promoted. Captain Eskew, was he promoted?
Yes, ma'am.
He was promoted as well. So we have promotions, and we have you saying that they didn't directly, but they wouldn't give you a meeting. They never would follow through, and you didn't feel the need to continue to be on the use of force because they pretty much wasn't doing anything with it.
Well, and to be fair, I was not requesting a meeting with Internal Affairs because
Right.
I did not
I didn't say
consider
Internal
it an
Affairs.
administrative issue. I considered
Right.
it criminal.
Right. But you were requesting that someone talk to you about it or look at it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was not afforded to you, right, until you talked to Ms. Faye Morrison, right?
Correct.
All right. I just, again, want to thank you for your service to our state, and thank you for your honesty and your testimony. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Representative Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sergeant, thank you for being here, and thank you for your service. Just to clarify, who was at the top of the food chain of the training division at the time?
Captain Richards at the time.
Captain Richards was the, okay, because you threw out a lot of names. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, that concludes Mr. Davis. Thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate your testimony.
Yes, sir.